Well, by this time as a Christian, we've moved and we've had changed churches by desire. But leaving a church is like leaving family. After you're at a church for a little while, the people of the church become family. So even if the church is not headed in a good direction, you still are leaving part of your family behind, and it's difficult. Um, about four times before I became a minister, we changed churches. Some of those times were moves and were unavoidable. Some of the moves were avoidable. But since I was a pastor, I'm blessed in the fact that I served 27 years at the same church. But nevertheless, in my career as a minister and during my retirement, we've changed churches four times. And that has been even more difficult because as a pastor, you're the shepherd of the flock and you become even closer to the members of the church. What did I say all of that for? Well, because we're in Acts chapter 20. Paul is on his third missionary journey and he's traveling back through some of the same places where he has been before. And he knows he's headed towards Jerusalem and then eventually probably to his death. And he's really having a hard time saying goodbye, and the people are having a hard time saying goodbye to him. Acts chapter 20, verse 33 through 38, we find him saying goodbye at Ephesus. Now that was probably extra hard for him because he'd been there for 3 years. And here's what he said: I've coveted no man's silver or gold or clothes. You yourselves know that these hands ministered to my own needs and to the men who were with me. In everything I showed you that by working hard in this manner, you must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus. He said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And when he had said these things, he knelt down and prayed with them all. And they began to weep aloud, embraced Paul, and repeatedly kissed him, grieving especially over the word which he had spoken, that they would not see his face again. And they were accompanying him to the ship. And then as he moves down to Tyre on his way back to Jerusalem, we have the same kind of a thing. We find that when our days were there ended, we left and started on our journey. And many with their wives and children escorted us until we were out of the city. And after kneeling down on the beach and praying, we said farewell to one another. And then in Acts 21, verses 12 through 14, he's in Caesarea. And it says, when we had heard this, as we as well as the local residents began begging him not to go up to Jerusalem. Paul had shared that he felt that bondage was going to be waiting for him and perhaps even death. And it's interesting here in the transition of Acts where I stumbled over the fact that it says we. Obviously, when we have the writer of Luke as the writer of the book of Acts, it's obvious that Luke has joined Paul in this missionary journey. It says, when we had heard this, heard that Paul was headed towards bondage and towards perhaps death. It says, then Paul answered, what are you doing weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but even to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And since he would not be persuaded, we have all fell silent, remarking, the will of the Lord be done. It's hard. It's hard to say goodbye to church family. It really is. Even if you think you might get to see them again. Lois and I have often said one of the worst parts of having left Florida was the fact that we had to leave family there. And I don't mean biological family, I mean church family. One of the hardest things. And knowing that it was going to be difficult to get back there. And knowing that we would also probably be moving back and forth between two church families here in the Carolinas. Having to say goodbye, for half a year in one place and half a year in another place. It's difficult when they become family and when you love them, when you care about them, when they're ailing and you're not there to be with them for their ailments, their surgeries, and their trials and tribulations. I can really compassionately understand how difficult it must have been for Paul. All of the cities that he went to, all of the churches that he founded, all of the disciples that he had made and encouraged, and to have to go from place to place because he knew that that's what God wanted him to do, but also having a hard time saying goodbye to family. And next time you think about your pastor or missionary, when you think about a parishioner, remember that it's hard to say goodbye. Have compassion. Be considerate of those that have to leave. Be considerate of those that are leaving. And try to understand that it's not the easiest part of being a pastor. It's not the easiest part of being a member when those goodbyes have to be said. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.